Archaeologists found a strange human skeleton. DNA results left scientists speechless. The ancient world, when you think about it, has always held a strange and powerful fascination. The farther back in time we go, the more mysterious it becomes. And the more mysterious it is, the more curious we are. Have you ever wondered why, after thousands of years of harsh history, massive structures still exist as if they are defying time itself? Why are there ancient artifacts crafted with such extraordinary precision that even modern science can only shake its head in disbelief? And perhaps most unsettling of all are the silent skeletons buried deep within the earth. Yet somehow, they seem to whisper stories that have never been fully explained. History is not written only in words. It is preserved in stone, in bone, and in traces that appear to have been forgotten. Over thousands of years, through wars, natural disasters, and the relentless erosion of time, many things have vanished forever. And yet, some discoveries have endured in ways that seem almost impossible, so well preserved that they leave not only us, but even the most seasoned archaeologists completely stunned. Every artifact brought to light is not merely an object. It is a profound question posed to humanity. And perhaps what draws us so deeply into these mysteries is the feeling of standing on the boundary between what is known and what cannot yet be explained. The more we learn, the smaller we realize we are when faced with the intelligence and capabilities of ancient civilizations. So in today's video, I invite you to journey back through time with me as we explore 13 archaeological discoveries that consistently rank among the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. Discoveries whose origins, purposes, and methods of creation continue to spark endless debate within the scientific community even today. And who knows, by the time you finish watching, you may find yourself forming your own explanation. Now, let's begin with our first discovery. 1.9 million-year-old skeleton with skin in South Africa. Recently, scientists announced a groundbreaking discovery after finding two nearly complete skeletons dating back 1.9 million years, with remnants of skin still preserved on one of them. The discovery was made in the Malapa Cave in South Africa. This marks the first time in history that a fossil belonging to a human ancestor has retained soft tissue, opening a golden opportunity for scientists to examine ancient DNA and trace the path of human evolution with an unprecedented level of accuracy. Leading this research is Professor Chris Stringer, one of the world's foremost experts on human origins at the Natural History Museum in London. He was also the scientist who named this extraordinary specimen Australopithecus sediba, a name that is now making waves throughout the scientific community. What is truly astonishing is that although Sediba possessed a brain size and several physical traits similar to those of great apes, its fingers, frontal brain region, teeth, pelvis, and legs clearly display features strikingly similar to modern humans. It is a skeleton that seems to bridge two worlds, bearing the form of an ancient ancestor while revealing the earliest steps on the path toward becoming Homo sapiens, humans as we are today. This is not merely an archaeological discovery. It is a living clue that helps fill a critical gap in the history of human evolution. Based on these unique anatomical characteristics, many scientists believe that Australopithecus sediba may represent a crucial missing link in the evolutionary transition from ape to human. Despite its small brain and relatively short stature, the evolutionary changes seen in finer details, such as the hands and pelvis, point to an undeniable transformation. Professor Stringer has emphasized that Sediba plays an extremely important role in shaping experts' understanding of the human evolutionary journey. Today, these two invaluable skeletons are on display at the Natural History Museum in London, where millions of visitors are gathering to witness firsthand the remarkable evidence of one of humanity's oldest evolutionary links. What would you think if, one day, from the remaining fragments of skin, we were able to reconstruct the appearance of our own ancestors? It's a difficult question, isn't it? But I believe that someday in the not-too-distant future, our scientists will make it possible. 2,500-year-old skeleton reveals a brutal punishment in ancient China. Thousands of years ago, in ancient China, committing a crime was far more than simply being locked behind cold iron bars. The laws of that era were so severe that for offenses considered serious, people could be forced to pay with a part of their own bodies. And you may not know this, but among the punishments that continue to send chills down the spine of later generations, limb amputation was regarded as a sentence that involved no immediate bloodshed, yet haunted the condemned for the rest of their lives. This punishment was commonly imposed for crimes such as evading duties, theft, or even acts of disrespect toward authority, and in many cases, it was used as an alternative to the death penalty. A study published in the Journal of Archaeological Science and Anthropology revealed a surprising story involving two men who lived during the Zhou dynasty, roughly between 1050 and 221 BCE, in what is now Henan province in central China. What archaeologists uncovered from their skeletal remains has forced many to rethink how we imagine ancient societies. According to Dr. Qian Wang, a co-author of the study, the archaeological evidence shows that punishment by limb amputation was neither random nor as barbaric as many people assume. On the contrary, it was a well-organized process, carried out with precise techniques, and even included post-punishment medical care intended to help the punished individuals survive and recover. Just imagine that. Thousands of years ago, when medicine was still in its infancy, people had already considered something like aftercare following punishment. Strange, yet deeply thought-provoking, isn't it? Detailed bone analysis revealed that one man had his right leg amputated, while the other lost his left leg. This detail was not accidental. According to historical records, the removal of the right leg was typically reserved for more serious crimes than the removal of the left. This has led to the hypothesis that the two men may have committed different offenses and may even have been connected to one another within the social structure of their time. Even more telling is the fact that the cut marks on the bones were clean and precise, showing no signs of repeated hacking with crude weapons. This indicates that the punishment was carried out using methods closer to surgical procedures rather than uncontrolled acts of violence. The bones also display evidence of controlled healing, suggesting that both men survived for years after their sentences were carried out. Based on estimates, they lived around 550 BCE. The man who lost his right leg died at approximately 45 years of age, while the man who lost his left leg lived to around 55 years old. The way they were buried suggests that their social status may have been higher than that of ordinary farmers, possibly as low-ranking officials or scholars. This makes the story even more remarkable, as it demonstrates that the law of the time showed little mercy, even toward those with education or social standing. The research team also examined other possible explanations for the amputations, such as congenital deformities, medical treatment, or ritual sacrifice. However, there was no evidence that their bodies had adapted to a lifelong disability, nor were there signs of religious rituals. After comparing the wounds, the level of violence, and the historical context, the scientists reached the most reasonable conclusion. These amputations were the result of judicial punishment. This form of punishment is believed to have originated during the Xia dynasty and was recorded in ancient texts such as the Rites of Zhou, while also being supported by archaeological remains found at Erlitou in the Yellow River Valley, China. By the Western Zhou period, the practice had become institutionalized and widely enforced. Remains of an execution victim from 2,000 years ago. Hidden beneath layers of soil once thought to belong only to modern railway lines, history sometimes resurfaces in ways that send chills down the spine. And so it was that, during surveys carried out for the construction of the HS2 high-speed rail project, which will connect London with major cities such as Birmingham, Manchester, and Leeds, archaeologists uncovered a dark mystery at Welwick Farm, near the town of Wendover in Buckinghamshire, England. A set of human remains was discovered, and from the very position in which the body lay, something felt deeply unsettling. The skeleton dates back to the Iron Age, approximately 2,000 years ago. What immediately caught archaeologists' attention was the man's burial posture. He had been buried face down in a ditch, with his hands tightly bound and positioned behind his back, beneath the pelvis. This was not a conventional burial, nor did it show any sign of a respectful funerary ritual. On the contrary, it strongly suggests an execution, or at the very least, a violent death intended as punishment. One cannot help but wonder what this man endured in the final moments of his life. At present, osteologists are conducting detailed analyses of every remaining trace on the skeleton. Bone trauma, signs of restraint, and the burial environment itself may all serve as clues to the cause of death. Every fracture, every broken fragment is like an unfinished sentence in a story that has stretched across 2 millennia. The The site revealed even more surprises when archaeologists discovered a massive circular arrangement of wooden posts measuring approximately 213 feet in diameter, aligned with the winter solstice. This structure immediately brings to mind Stonehenge in Wiltshire, one of the most iconic monuments of prehistoric Britain. The presence of this wooden circle suggests that the area may once have been an important center for religious rituals, spiritual beliefs, or sacred gatherings during the Iron Age. The combination of a skeleton bearing signs of execution and a large ritual structure raises an even heavier question. Was this death connected to ancient ceremonial practices, or was it simply the result of a harsh judicial punishment imposed by society at the time? Dr. Rachel Wood, an archaeologist involved in the HS2 project, stated that this discovery demonstrates that Buckinghamshire is not only geographically significant, but also a witness to a long continuum of history stretching from the Neolithic period through the Iron Age and into the Middle Ages. In addition to the mysterious remains and the wooden circle, the project also uncovered another grave, this one buried in a lead-lined coffin. Lead was a rare and valuable material in ancient times, clearly indicating a stark distinction in social status. On one side, there may have been a victim of violence or punishment. On the other, an individual laid to rest with care and costly materials. Within the same area, this contrast paints a vivid picture of a highly complex ancient society. According to Mike Court, lead archaeologist of the HS2 project, these discoveries represent an invaluable treasure, not only for understanding the history of Buckinghamshire, but also for broadening our perspective on the cultural heritage of England as a whole. Every skeleton, every structure uncovered is a crucial piece of the puzzle, helping us better imagine how ancient people lived, what they believed, how they divided social classes, and ultimately, how they died. Fascinating, isn't it? The 5,400-year-old remains of a young woman found embedded in a cave wall. You know, there are some archaeological discoveries that are chilling enough just to hear about. And the story of the so-called isolated skull in Marcel Lubin's cave near the city of Bologna, Italy, is one of them. Back in 2015, when scientists ventured deep into this cave, they did not uncover a collective burial site, as is common in many ancient Italian caves. Instead, they found only a single human remain, the skull of a young woman, lying alone in an extremely high and precarious position on a sheer cave wall. That image alone was enough to raise a flood of unsettling questions. Reaching the skull was no simple task. Archaeologists were forced to construct an artificial climbing system measuring approximately 39 feet in length just to get close to the discovery site. Even then, they had to use long poles to carefully reach and excavate the skull. Because of this highly unusual placement, the discovery was given its haunting name, the isolated skull. According to Live Science, many caves in Italy were used in the past as collective burial sites. Yet Marcel Lubin's cave contained no other human remains, making the skull's solitary presence even more difficult to explain. A multi-year research project led by Dr. Maria Giovanna of the University of Bologna gradually revealed details that made the story even more mysterious. Bone analysis showed that the skull belonged to a young woman who died at an age estimated between 24 and 35 years old. The surface of the bone bears distinctive marks indicating that the soft tissues were deliberately removed after death. This does not resemble a natural decomposition process, but instead suggests a complex funerary ritual, possibly tied to ancient spiritual or religious beliefs. However, not all of the marks on the skull point to ritual activity. Other forms of damage, combined with the way the skull appears to be almost fused to the cave wall, tell a very different story. Scientists believe that the remains were washed away from their original burial site by natural processes. At the time, the area was not yet the vast cave system we see today, but rather a sinkhole at ground level. Geological analysis indicates that over the course of approximately 1,370 years, rainwater and flowing water continuously carried sediment down into this sinkhole. Over time, layers of minerals built up around the skull, forming what is known as flowstone, which gradually encased the human bone. As a result, the skull remained trapped underground while the surrounding landscape continued to change. Slowly, beneath the sinkhole, a large cave formed, expanding both horizontally and vertically. In contrast, the sinkhole opening above was eventually completely buried by mud and sediment. As erosion and cave expansion continued, the skull was carried from its original position through the main cave passage and eventually became lodged high along the cave wall. Only a small portion of it remained visible, making it appear as though the skull had been embedded directly into the rock, a surreal sight that is difficult for the modern mind to comprehend. So in the end, what is more frightening? The mysterious ritual the young woman may have undergone after death, or the silent journey her skull endured for more than a millennium deep beneath the earth? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below this video. Red fingerprints and a self-portrait of another human species. In the dim shadows of San Lazaro Cave, nestled among the ancient rocky hills of Segovia, Spain, an ancient secret has awoken after more than 43,000 years of slumber. Amid layers of time and limestone dyed with history, scientists uncovered a strange trace, a fingerprint in red, like dried blood, clearly imprinted on the surface of an unusual stone. Not a fingerprint of Homo sapiens, but of a lost relative, a Neanderthal, another human species that once shared the earth with us during the Ice Age. The stone itself was not naturally part of the cave. It is a piece of granite, roughly 6 inches long, rounded and rough like a giant potato, yet carrying a powerful, wordless message. Near one end of the stone are faint depressions resembling a pair of primitive eyebrows. Directly below, the red handprint is deliberately placed, not random, but intentional. The red color comes from ochre, an iron oxide mineral that ancient humans used in rituals, painting, and burial practices. The combination of the chosen pigment and the stone's shape led archaeologists to an intriguing hypothesis. This may be a crude piece of art, a primitive bust depicting the shape of a human. It could represent a member of the community, a mythological figure, or perhaps even the individual who left the fingerprint, a deeply personal statement of ancient imagination. The discovery was later published by the Spanish National Research Council, CSYC, and documented in the journal Archaeological and Anthropological Sciences, raising haunting questions about the Neanderthal mind. Have we underestimated their capacity for symbolic thought? Once dismissed as crude, underdeveloped, and unimaginative, Neanderthals are increasingly proving they possessed complex inner lives, the ability to imagine, express, and perhaps even create art much earlier than previously believed. San Lazaro Cave is no random site. Archaeological evidence shows that Neanderthals lived here between 44,000 and 41,000 years ago, very close to the time of their extinction. The surrounding area contains no signs of Homo sapiens, reinforcing the hypothesis that the Neanderthals themselves made this mark. That they transported the stone from elsewhere, selected a uniquely shaped rock, and used red ochre to leave their imprint demonstrates a remarkable level of symbolic cognition, something long thought exclusive to modern humans. This discovery forces scientists to rethink the evolutionary narrative. Neanderthals were not just hunters living in caves, they dreamed, created, and left their mark, literally placing their hand on stone as a statement of self. After tens of thousands of years, that mark still speaks to us, in color, form, and eternal silence. Perhaps in that moment, a Neanderthal imagined themselves, placed their hand on the stone, and said, "I existed, I thought, I felt." And so, even as time has swept away an entire species, their memory endures, vivid, red, and profoundly human. 2,000-year-old tomb of a woman wearing precious jewelry. You've probably heard the ancient tales of the mighty Roman civilization, of heroic warriors and mysterious noblewomen. But have you ever imagined that, beneath the ancient soil and stone of the Caucasus Mountains, a secret had been sleeping for 2,000 years? A tomb holding the remains of a woman adorned with priceless jewelry, sparkling with gold and rare glass? If you haven't, let me take you on a journey into the strange and captivating story of this mysterious woman. She was discovered in a family tomb in the North Caucasus, alongside a warrior and 2 other men. While her identity remains a mystery, what was found in her grave reveals a great deal. She was no ordinary woman. That much is clear from the extremely valuable jewelry buried with her. 2 rings were exquisitely crafted from white glass with thin gold filaments, set with a layer of dark glass in the center. These are unmistakably Roman-style pieces, and according to expert Kadieva, at that time, they would have been luxury items unimaginable to the people of the North Caucasus, as glass was not produced in the region. Her shoes were also decorated with glass beads and deep red carnelian stones, a gem long considered a symbol of power and prestige. Most striking of all was her gold pendant, set with a purple quartz stone, the final piece of jewelry she took with her to the afterlife. These details led archaeologists to believe that she was not just a noblewoman, but possibly the wife or close relative of an Alans warrior, a people who migrated to the region during the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. Archaeologist Kadieva explained, "Wealthy warriors from the North Caucasus often gave expensive jewelry to the people they loved most. The woman in this tomb was likely the mother, wife, or sister of a powerful warrior, and quite possibly the wife of a high-ranking chieftain. Yet the mystery does not end there. While no one knows the exact cause of death for the 4 individuals in the tomb, the condition of the remains suggests they died at the same time, raising even more questions about what happened. Was this the aftermath of a battle, a ritual sacrifice, or a tragedy of love and loyalty? The answer remains unknown." 500-year-old girl mummy preserves organs, holds secrets never before revealed. At an altitude of over 22,000 feet, where the air is so thin that just breathing is a challenge, it's hard for modern humans to imagine that hundreds of years ago, the Inca carried children to the summit of Lulai volcano. Yet on March 16, 1999, a team of scientists led by Johann Reinhard made one of the most shocking discoveries in the history of archaeology: 3 Inca child mummies lying in the frozen soil along the Chile-Argentina border. What stunned scientists was not only the location of the find, but also the unbelievable level of preservation of the bodies. The oldest child, named the Lulai maiden, was approximately 13 to 15 years old. The other 2 children, a boy and a girl, were about 4 to 5 years old and were called Lulai boy and lightning girl. When scientists first saw the body of the older girl, they could hardly believe their eyes. Her face was calm, her posture slightly bent forward, a light shawl draped over her shoulders, long black hair and skin almost untouched by time. She looked as if she were simply sleeping amid the eternal cold of the high mountain. The autopsy that followed only added to the wonder. There were no signs of violence, and her internal organs, from lungs and liver to the brain, remained intact. Even more astonishing, blood was still present in her heart. After extensive analysis, scientists determined that all 3 mummies were about 500 years old, and the cause of death was likely due to consuming a substance that induced a trance-like state before dying in the cold. But why were these 3 children sacrificed in this way? Years of research eventually revealed the answer. They were Inca ritual offerings to the gods, carried out around the 1400s when the Inca civilization was at its peak. Before being sacrificed, the children were carefully prepared, even fattened with a diet rich in potatoes, corn, vegetables, and dried llama meat, foods associated with agriculture and abundance, essentially offering the gods the best of human nourishment. Forensic analysis of the Lulai maiden's hair revealed another chilling detail. Months before her death, she had consumed large amounts of alcohol and coca leaves. This suggests that when she was taken to the mountaintop, she was in an intoxicated state, likely to reduce fear and pain during the ritual. Coca leaves, the raw material for cocaine, together with alcohol, were an integral part of preparing her for a sacred Inca sacrifice. Yet the greatest value that modern science gained from the Lulai maiden is not just a deeper understanding of Inca rituals or their masterful mummification techniques. During examination, researchers discovered Mycobacterium tuberculosis, the bacteria that causes pulmonary tuberculosis, in her body. Detecting pathogens in ancient humans is not new, but thanks to this exceptional preservation, modern medicine had the chance to take a crucial step forward. Previously, confirming whether an ancient person actually had a disease was very difficult because pathogen DNA could come from the surrounding environment. However, while studying the 3 Inca children, Professor Angelique Corthals from John Jay College, New York, developed a new method: analyzing proteins preserved in mummy tissue. This approach is far more accurate and has since been widely applied in archaeology, medicine, and forensic investigations. Professor Corthals believes that this discovery could open the door to solving historical medical mysteries, such as why the 1918 flu pandemic caused such devastation. At the same time, it helps modern humans better understand and prepare for potential future disease threats. As you can see, archaeology is sometimes far from boring. It connects the past and present in ways that are truly extraordinary. Nearly 900-year-old woman's skeleton buried in wooden boat. Hidden among the majestic Chapelco Mountains of Patagonia, Argentina, the Neanderthal burial site has long been considered sacred land by the Mapuche people. And it was precisely in this remote place, seemingly occupied only by mountain winds and ancient forests, that archaeologists recently uncovered a grave that challenges our understanding of ancient South American burial practices. The skeleton of a young woman, buried in a wooden boat, had lain undisturbed beneath the earth for nearly 9 centuries. Initial analysis determined that the remains belonged to a woman who had died between 17 and 25 years old. While the cause of death remains unknown, the manner in which she was interred tells a very different story. This young woman was not casually buried. She was carefully placed inside a wooden boat, accompanied by valuable artifacts. Next to her lay a ceramic vessel and nearly 10 freshwater mollusk shells, items that were clearly intentional parts of the burial ritual. The most striking feature is the wooden boat itself. Crafted from the trunk of a Chilean cedar tree, a durable and precious wood, the boat was hollowed out using fire, a technique demanding both skill and patience. During excavation, archaeologists found nearly 600 charred wood fragments around the grave. This suggests that the boat's creation was not only practical, but also ritually significant. Clearly, this was no ordinary burial. It was a carefully prepared rite for the final journey of the deceased. Radiocarbon dating of the bones indicates that the woman died around the year 1142, long before the Spanish set foot in South America. This finding debunks the previous assumption that boat burials only appeared during the colonial period. In reality, this ritual existed in pre-Columbian times and was an important part of the spiritual life of indigenous communities, particularly the Mapuche, the largest indigenous group in South America. Looking at this wooden boat, many may draw comparisons to Viking ship burials in Europe, where warriors and leaders were sent off in longboats. However, the difference lies in the spiritual meaning. For the Mapuche, the boat was not a symbol of power or conquest, but a vessel to help the soul of the deceased cross the boundary between worlds. According to ancient Mapuche legends, the soul of the dead must undertake a dangerous journey to reach the afterlife, and during this journey, they are guided by a mythical boatman. The items placed in the boat, like the ceramic vessel and mollusk shells, may have been offerings to this guide. Notably, the boatman was traditionally compensated with lanka, a rare blue stone symbolizing gratitude and the hope for a safe passage of the soul. The discovery at Neanderthal not only illuminates an ancient burial practice, but also provides a rare window into the rich spiritual world of the Mapuche people. In the wild mountains of Patagonia, the wooden boat buried deep underground quietly tells a story of belief, death, and the soul's journey to the afterlife nearly 900 years ago. And as layers of soil are lifted, the past rises once more, leaving modern observers to wonder, how many more mysterious journeys are still waiting to be discovered? 250 human remains, sealed on an Egyptian cliff for 4,200 years. Amid the arid lands of southern Egypt, where sun and wind have eroded nearly every trace of time, a secret has remained hidden for thousands of years on a sheer cliff face, almost entirely unnoticed. It wasn't until archaeologists began surveying the Al-Hamadiyya necropolis near the city of Sohag that a scene capable of stunning the scientific world slowly emerged. About 250 ancient tombs carved directly into the cliffside, stacked like a city of the dead suspended in mid-air. According to Muhammad, head of the Central Antiquities Department of Upper Egypt, these tombs contain a wealth of artifacts dating from roughly 2345 to 2181 BCE. Inside the burial chambers, archaeologists found shards of pottery, intact ceramic vessels, nearly pristine plaster objects, and numerous offerings carefully placed for the deceased. With an age exceeding 4,000 years, each item here carries immense historical and archaeological value. What surprises many is that over all this time, the necropolis has remained almost completely untouched by tomb robbers. The reason lies in its unexpected location. Unlike most Egyptian tombs buried deep underground, the Al-Hamadiyya graves were cut directly into the vertical rock face. From a distance, they blend almost seamlessly into the natural terrain, making it extremely difficult for treasure hunters to detect them. The tombs are arranged in multiple rows across the cliff, forming a complex burial ensemble. Based on the size of the chambers and the quantity of funerary goods, researchers believe these were not royal tombs. They do not compare to the pyramids or the lavish underground tombs of elite nobles. Yet the careful craftsmanship of the architecture shows that those buried here were certainly not ordinary commoners. The burial chambers are finely carved, thoughtfully arranged, and provide distinct spaces for placing bodies and offerings. This indicates that the occupants held significant social status, likely belonging to wealthy families, officials, or local leaders. This hypothesis is further supported by the identification of Al-Hamadiyya as the resting place of leaders and officials from the city of Akhmim, once one of ancient Egypt's most important administrative centers. The area was also revered by the ancient Egyptians as the Valley of Min, the god of fertility and rebirth. Burial here was not only an honor, but also reflected a strong belief in the afterlife. For them, death was not an end, but a gateway to a new cycle of life. Even more remarkably, archaeologists note that some of the oldest cliffside tombs may date back 4,200 years, meaning this necropolis was used over multiple generations, witnessing the rise and fall of an entire region. Each tomb is not only a resting place, but also a piece of the larger social mosaic of ancient Egyptian life, hanging before our eyes all along, yet we never looked up to see it. The Rendswühren, bog mummy, a violent death buried for over 2,000 years. When it comes to archaeology, some discoveries don't just spark curiosity, they send chills down your spine, as if whispers from a distant past are reaching out to you. The story of the Rendswühren bog mummy is one of those cases. It begins in a dark, murky bog near the city of Kiel, Germany, where in 1871, the nearly perfectly preserved body of an ancient man was suddenly uncovered. There was no coffin, no tomb, only cold, unyielding peat and the silent passage of time. What makes the Rendswühren mummy extraordinary is not just its age, but how it has been preserved to this day. The acidic, oxygen-poor environment of the bog acted as a natural safe, protecting his skin, hair, and many other details of his body. When discovered, he was far from being a skeleton. He retained a nearly complete form, enough to astonish anyone who saw him. From the moment of discovery, a flood of questions arose. Who was this man? When did he live? And why did his life end in such a desolate place? To answer these questions, scientists conducted meticulous tests on his bones, soft tissues, and skull. The results revealed that the mummy belonged to a man who lived around the 1st or 2nd century BCE, over 2,000 years ago. At that time, living into one's 40s or 50s was fairly common, and it turns out Rendswühren had died within that age range. But the most haunting truth lies in the cause of death. This was not a natural death from age or illness. On the skull, experts discovered a severe injury forming a distinct triangular hole. The evidence indicated he had been struck on the head with a hard object, likely a crude ancient weapon, with immense force. The blow was fatal, and it is almost certain that he endured excruciating pain in his final moments. This detail immediately sparked countless theories. Was this a murder? A revenge attack? Or perhaps a ritual sacrifice tied to ancient beliefs? The fact that his body was found in a bog adds another layer of intrigue. In many ancient European cultures, bogs were considered sacred spaces, often associated with offerings or sacrifices to the gods. If this were the case, Rendswühren may have been a victim of the spiritual and ritual practices of his era. From a body buried in mud, the Rendswühren bog mummy has become a vivid witness to history. It not only tells the story of one individual, but also reflects the harshness, violence, and mysterious beliefs of ancient society. Even today, despite all of modern science, the story of this man's death remains a profound mystery, challenging the curiosity of anyone fascinated by the past. A tomb 100 times richer than Qin Shi Huang's, lost for nearly 800 years. Throughout human history, few names carry as much mystery as Genghaskhan, the great Mongol emperor who conquered nearly the entire known world, building an empire that stretched from Asia to Europe. Yet, even after almost 800 years, his tomb remains an unsolved mystery that continues to puzzle archaeologists. So why is Genghaskhan's resting place so enigmatic? Let's embark on a journey to trace the legacy of the most powerful man in human history. It begins with his death in 1227. a mysterious event that remains one of the greatest unanswered questions for historians. Some believe he died from an arrow wound to the knee, as recounted by Marco Polo, the first European to travel across Asia in the Middle Ages. However, according to the secret history of the Mongols, another theory suggests he fell from his horse while hunting. Just like the mystery of his death, the location of his tomb continues to elude modern scholars. Throughout his life of conquest, Genghaskhan and his famous cavalry swept from Asia to Europe, plundering and ruling countless wealthy cities. His tomb must therefore contain unimaginable treasures, a vast collection of cultural artifacts from both East and West. In fact, his tomb is said to be 100 times richer than the famous tomb of Qin Shi Huang in Shanxi, China. The only certainty recorded in historical documents is that Genghis Khan's body was returned to Mongolia after his death. Many Mongolian historians believe he was buried near the Onan River, close to the Altai Mountains, a resting place for other Mongol kings. But all of this is speculative. Some suggest his tomb might lie in the Khenti Mountains, a region deeply connected to his youth, a place where he once stood atop a peak, praying to the heavens for the strength to unify the Mongol tribes. And indeed, every wish he made came true. Yet, despite numerous expeditions, from Chinese archaeological teams to large-scale searches funded by National Geographic, the result has always been zero. Why is locating Genghis Khan's tomb so difficult? One striking hypothesis is that his loyal soldiers created intricate layers of protection, erasing all traces. After his burial, thousands of horses were driven over the site to destroy any evidence, and those who participated in the burial were executed to safeguard the secret. Every clue seems to have been wiped clean, leaving the tomb shrouded in mystery. Even so, searches continue relentlessly. Archaeologists press on despite resistance from local Mongolians and strange phenomena, such as snakes reportedly attacking when researchers approach the site. These tales only add to the mystique surrounding Genghis Khan's tomb. One fact historians unanimously acknowledge is this: no matter where his tomb lies, it remains part of the epic story of a man who changed the course of human history. Genghis Khan was not just a warrior. He is a symbol of power, intelligence, and mystery. So what do you think? Will his tomb remain forever hidden in the shadows? Or will the secret of the great emperor's final resting place one day be revealed? Share your thoughts in the comments below and join the conversation. 2,000-year-old tomb of the guardian of the underworld. In October 2023, a 2,000-year-old tomb was discovered in Giugliano, Naples, Italy. And what makes it truly remarkable is that it contains a mural depicting Cerberus, the legendary three-headed dog from Greek mythology, known as the hunting dog of Hades, tasked with guarding the gates of the underworld. Because of this, experts did not hesitate to nickname the tomb of Cerberus, adding an extra layer of mystery and intrigue to the story. The mural depicts Cerberus's final moment, when it is captured by Heracles, the famous Greek hero, marking the conclusion of one of his 12 great labors. It's a powerful image tied to a legendary feat, but strangely, the individual buried in this tomb is not a mythological figure or fantastical creature, but a human being. So why does the tomb bear the symbol of Cerberus? And what connection did the deceased have with the three-headed dog? As experts continued excavating and studying the tomb, they discovered 2 stone coffins inside. One of these was examined using a miniature camera, allowing archaeologists to look inside without damaging the remains. The result revealed a well-preserved human body, wrapped in a shroud, surrounded by a collection of grave goods, including unguentaria, small jars for oils and perfumes, and a strigil, a tool used in Roman bathing rituals. With these findings, researchers decided to open the coffin lid to conduct more detailed studies of the body and the accompanying artifacts. Their main goal now is to uncover the identity of the tomb's occupant and understand any possible connection to Cerberus. Is this the tomb of someone involved in Greek myth-inspired rituals? Or is it merely an intriguing coincidence that the deceased was buried in a tomb adorned with such mystical symbols? This tomb promises to reveal valuable insights into the daily life, beliefs, and rituals of ancient Romans. The combination of the grave goods and the Cerberus mural is not only a cultural artifact, but also a mystery about the relationship between humans and mythology during this period. Who was the person buried here? And did mythological rituals truly influence the lives of ancient Romans? These are questions that researchers will continue to explore in the coming months, so stay tuned for what may be uncovered next. Stone Age skeletons in a mass grave reveal horrific human violence 6,000 years ago. 7 human skeletons, including 2 male skeletons, 1 female skeleton, 3 children's skeletons, 1 infant skull, along with fragments of hand bones and several disarticulated arm bones, were recently discovered by archaeologists in Bergheim, France, in an ancient mass grave. This grisly, almost horror movie-like discovery sheds light on the extreme violence that existed 6,000 years ago. The discovery was reported in the December issue of the journal Antiquity, which stated that the individuals in the pit had been killed during an attack or conflict and then placed in the mass grave, where previously some left arms had been buried, severed with axes or sharp weapons. It is still unclear whose arms were cut. All skeletons were found with their arms intact, except for 1 male skeleton whose skull shows signs of a severe blow. This skeleton is missing its left arm, though researchers have not determined whether the missing arm was also placed in the pit. Archaeologist Fanny Chanal from the Antia Archaeological Institute in Habsheim and her research team are unsure whether the perpetrators specifically targeted left arms for any particular reason, but they suggest the left arms may have been taken as trophies of war. The scattered hand bone fragments at the bottom of the pit indicate that the hands of the severed arms were deliberately smashed. Carbon dating of the bones shows that these individuals lived 6,000 years ago during the Neolithic period. At that time, deceased members of farming communities were usually buried in round-mouthed pits. However, the Bergheim discovery provides the first evidence that victims of violent conflicts from this era were also buried in such round-mouthed pits. This is a highly significant finding, but it raises more questions than answers. Prior to this discovery, the nature of Neolithic mass graves was still largely mysterious. Some scientists believe the pits were originally silos, later repurposed for burials. Others suggested the pits were intended for high-status individuals, with servants or family members killed to accompany them. Another hypothesis is that slaves may have been killed and buried as sacrificial offerings to deities, as several artifacts were found alongside the skeletons, including a piece of jewelry made from seashell, a stone spearhead, a pig jaw fragment, and 2 wild rabbit skeletons, all consistent with ritual offerings. It remains difficult to determine which of these hypotheses best explains the Bergheim mass grave. As you can see, over hundreds of millions of years, the remnants left behind by the ancient world continue to amaze and overwhelm us. What are your thoughts on the mysteries we've just explored? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to give ancient history a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our other exciting discoveries. For now, that's all. See you next time.